Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about the question, can you do medical coding remotely abroad? If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. I get this question most often from people who are about ready to retire and they're saying, Blue, I want to live abroad. Can I do medical coding remotely? If I have a secure connection, can I do this remotely? I have responded many times to this in emails, and sometimes the question will come back rephrased in another way. But what if I have this and what if I have that? Guys, the reason that I say 9 times out of 10, okay, because I don't know every employer in the world, okay, 9 times out of 10, you will not be able to do this because of the simple fact that remote coding companies need you to be within a certain radius, okay? That's the first thing. Second of all, there is rules about people working while they are overseas or while they are abroad. If they're Americans and they're working overseas, there's rules about those types of things. So you really do have to be upfront and honest when you're applying for these places and you're asking them if you can live abroad. Because again, there's going to be rules. Sometimes facilities will want you to be within a certain radius of their facility because they are going to have you come in for meetings or whatever, or you have to be around for training and that kind of thing. And if you're overseas, you're not going to be able to do that, okay? So that is part of the reason why. The other thing is secure internet connection. Overseas, it's not always guaranteed. Yes, there are some places where there's a lot of expatriates, right? And there's going to be secure internet and things like that, sure. But that's not always guaranteed. And the connection may be spotty. It may not be as fluid as it normally would be if you were somewhere in the US. So that is something to think about. The other thing is the time difference. If you are working in a different time zone, if you're, say, in Japan and you're working for an American company, think about that. That's quite a bit of difference. And they are going to want you to be on their time. If they are having you work particular hours, they want you to be available at those times, not at the times when it's in your time zone and you are available, right? Because with employers, it's all about the employer. But I don't want to discourage anybody. I just want to tell you the reality of it all. And also, when you are brand new and you're just barely getting into medical coding, you are going to want to be around other medical coders. And it doesn't matter if you've had experience in the medical field before and you are wanting to transition into medical coding. That's not going to matter because being a medical coder, a hands-on medical coder, is a lot different from being a nurse or being a CNA or being a radiology tech. It is completely different. And while being a nurse, while you may have selected codes, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to understand right away how to code. I've trained many nurses and I've been there with many nurses who have struggled to understand the basic foundation of medical coding. And so that is something that you have to be prepared to be around others when you are brand new and starting out. The pandemic did change things quite a bit last year when there was brand new medical coders. Some of them were lucky enough to get started working at home with no prior experience. Typically, when a person is working remotely, they will have had 3 to 5 years of experience. But again, because the pandemic changed it all, they were given a chance to get started. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to get the same chance, because as facilities, some facilities are bringing their workers back, you have to be expected to be able to return to the workforce just like everybody else. And again, being the fact that you want to work remotely and you're brand new, you're gonna be in for a heck of a fight, okay? I will say that up front. Because a lot of times, again, they're going to want you to have experience. And that experience is because when you're learning from a book versus the real world, it is going to be completely different. Because learning from the book, you're going to have straightforward scenarios that are going to make sense. Even as I look back on workbooks now, I'm like, wow. Versus when you are working in the real world with doctors who are completely different. And some of them have different attitudes, and some of them will document wonderfully one day, and the next day they'll be like, I don't feel like doing this, I'm going to give you the bare minimum. And so it really all depends. But again, if you are brand new and you are just wanting to get into this because you want to live overseas and you want to do medical coding, the chances are 9 times out of 10 you're not going to be able to. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. Now, again, you may come across an employer who will be okay with it, but again, that may be few and far in between. Because a lot of times, even when you are looking at these remote coding positions, they are saying that you need to live within a certain radius, or you need to be available at certain times and things like that. So that is what you need to be upfront with when you are talking with the employer, because you're going to have their equipment. And that is another thing too. You're going to be having their, a lot of times remote coding companies will send you a computer, they'll send you a laptop and that kind of thing. So you will have their equipment, and they're going to want you to be in a US address place in order to get that equipment. And a lot of times when you are working at home, they want to make sure that your area is outfitted like it's supposed to be, that it's private and that kind of thing. So there's all those things to consider and think about when you're trying to get into this and perhaps live overseas. So that is just something to think about. This is a wonderful field for people who are retiring and perhaps they've been in the medical field, so they have all of this background in anatomy and medical terminology, and you still want to be able to use your skills in that regard. That is great, because you can always transfer those skills over and talk about those skills and play them up when you are in these job interviews. Hey, I've been in the medical field for 20 plus years and I got my certification, and now I want to get into medical coding, and I can bring all of my experience and my knowledge with me. And so that is what you can play up when you're talking about getting these jobs. But I hope that if you are out there and you are wanting to get into this and you're retiring, that you give it a chance to work at a facility first for a while before you really start to dig in and try to look for those remote positions. Because again, those remote positions may or may not be available to brand new people. So that is something to think about, but go ahead and still apply anyway, because I've always told people that if you're gonna start in this business, yes, it is difficult to get a job in the beginning, but you have to be persistent. There will not be a whole lot of entry-level positions, okay? So that is the first thing that you should know, because a lot of times people will look for those entry-level positions, and then they get frustrated when they can't find them. Well, everybody wants experience, but how are you supposed to get experience if no one will hire you? That's why you have to apply everywhere. Play up all of your talents. And if you are at retirement age, then you've had all of your career to amass all of these skills that you can talk about. There's nothing better than somebody who has had all this time to develop these skills, and then they come in and they're like, okay, well, I have this skill, this skill, this skill. Point out all of your skills. Look at the job description and make sure that you play up anything that they're asking for, and don't neglect the details. A lot of times I'll see people who will leave the fact that they know medical terminology, anatomy, and pathophysiology off of their resume. It is literally in the job listing. That's what they're looking for. A lot of times when new medical coders are coming in, sometimes you're going through accelerated programs. And if you don't have a strong background in medical already, you're going to be behind. So that is why they always say, anatomy, medical terminology, pathophysiology, because even for veteran coders who have been around, sometimes they don't keep up with that and they start to forget it. Well, when you get put into any clinic that they need you to be in, think about that. You're going to be like paddling trying to catch up because you don't know your medical terminology. It's very important to always stay up on that. And if you already have that skill, you need to play it up because it is so important. There is nothing better than somebody who understands the pathology of disease and who understands medical terminology and can speak that same language that providers speak. There's nothing better than that. And for these hiring managers, that's what they look for. So don't be surprised when you are getting these assessment tests and they ask you anatomy or medical terminology questions. Every time I've been interviewed, I've always been asked medical terminology questions and anatomy questions. So it's something that it should be played up. It's something that should be highly regarded, because if you have that, you're already further ahead than you know. Having any kind of background in medical is going to put you ahead of the game. And even if you don't have a background in medical, what other skills do you have? Think about that and apply that to your resume. I'm just saying. So that's it for today's message. I know this is short, but it's just my advice, guys. I get this question a lot all the time. So that's why I had to do a video on it. And there's really nothing else I could say about it other than those are pretty much the reasons why employers are not going to want their medical coders to be physically overseas. And that's all I'm going to say. So if you haven't already subscribed, I hope you will. Hit that like button. And I will see y'all on the next video. Bye.